And ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while. Capital G back with an EDH deck tech for you. No, it's not brought to you by TD or Deck Stats or even Sleemans. No sponsors here. Just me having some fun with an old friend of mine, Chainer Nightmare Adept. Coming from C20, and I finally get to talk about C20. It's been a busy summer. I'll tell you all about it at the end. But let's start with our friend here, Chainer. This is a new Chainer, Nightmare Adept. For Rakdos N2, we get to discard a card from our hand to be able to cast creatures from our graveyard. We can only activate the ability once each turn. Not so interested in that top line, honestly. We have Muldrotha, we have Gisa and Giralf, and I run both currently, so I was never really so hot on this first line. The second one, however, whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if you didn't cast it from your hand, it gains haste. That's a cool line. So, throw in a few flavor cards. I've got a few of the Nightmares. This is what Chainer was known for. So I've got a few of the Nightmare creatures here just to have a little bit of flavor in the deck. But really the primary goal is to cast creatures from our opponent's graveyards, or animate creatures from our opponent's graveyards. So of course for our flavor cards, we've got Chainer's Torment from Dominaria. Kind of accurately describes the insanity that eventually took his life in the storyline. Gains a little bit of life, gets us a big XX horror. Again, no, not here for practical use, totally here for flavor. We have the original Chainer here as well, who is still a very good commander in his own right, perhaps one of the few creatures from his era that's still a good commander choice today. A lot of other creatures from, say, the Invasion block, Odyssey block, a lot of them don't hold up very well. The original Chainer is one of the few that do, being able to pay triple black and 3 life to put any creature card from a graveyard into play under your control, and it gains the Nightmare creature type. Speaking of Nightmares, Faceless Butcher, Spellgorger Barbarian, Petrivarch, Mesmeric Fin, and Laquatus' Champion, they're all Nightmares, and when they come in to play, they will take something out of the game. So in case of Faceless Butcher, it takes an opponent's creature off the board until this leaves the battlefield. Laquatus' Champion takes 6 life away from someone. Not a great card, I guess, but it is a 6/3 with Regenerate, so he's hard to get rid of once he's down. And also, anytime you can finish an opponent off of Laquatus' Champion's ETB, it's pretty sweet. Mesmeric Fiend, you get to take a card from an opponent's hand. Petrivarch, you get to exile a land while it's in play. That's handy for getting rid of those pesky little mazes. Spellgorger Barbarian. This one is actually kind of useful for us. We discard a card at random from our hand, so we have to be careful when we play him. We don't want to discard some of our key pieces. And when he leaves play, we get to draw a card. So it's a way to kind of go a card deeper into our deck. A little bit of ramp, just a Soul Ring and a few of the 2 mana rocks. We also have a Solemn. So pretty light on ramp because our CMC for spells we're actually going to be casting is not very high. Things that are going to help us draw some cards: Cathartic Reunion, discard 2 cards, draw 3. Diabolic Tutor, get any card from our deck. Got Faithless Looting here, the recently banned Faithless Looting, banned in Modern. That means more copies for us, and it's a card we already heavily play in our format anyways. Honor the Godpharaoh, another way to discard a card to draw a card. It also gives us, well, discards 1 card, draws 2, sorry, and then we also get a blocker out of the deal, so I think it's okay. Fraction Arena, of course, the extra card draw every turn. Rixmati Reveler, discard a card, draw a card, or discard our whole hand and draw 3 cards if we play the Spectacle. Scheming Symmetry. Thought I'd give this a try. This would be a good place to do it because, well, as you can see, we are going to try and mill our opponents a little bit to fill their graveyards with their creatures for us to take. Tormenting Voice. Discard a card, draw 2 cards, of course. And yes, Altar of Dementia. I don't have a lot of ways of milling. Most of our ways of getting our opponent's creatures into the discard pile will involve discard and removal, as you'll see going forward. Bone Miser, we'll give him a try. He came with in the same deck as Chainer did, so why not? Let's give him a try. Whenever we discard a creature card, we get a zombie. Whenever we discard a land, we get double black. If we discard a non-creature, non-land, we get to draw a card. So why not? I think it'd be fun. It'd be fun to get him out there and run him. Classic Reanimator cards. Buried Alive. Gets up to 3 creatures from our graveyard and throws it into our discard pile. We've got Carnival and Carnage. This is here mostly for the Carnage side. 3 damage to target opponent and make them discard 2 cards. So hopefully that'll force them to discard some more expensive creatures that we can take for ourselves. And once we do take them, Dragon Breath and Dragon Shadow, if we manage to get these into our graveyard, the haste on Dragon Breath is perhaps a little redundant, but it does give the fire breathing, which is good. And Dragon Shadow gives the creature +1/+0 and fear, so that would be fun. They only cost 2 mana each to play from our hand, but if they are in our graveyard, then anytime we get a creature cost 6 or more to play under our control, they come back and enchant that creature. So I've always thought the Dragon Cycle were fun cards to play with. Grisly Spectacle, how's this for removal? Not only does it kill a creature, but it mills its controller for a number of cards equal to its power. So yes, a 4 mana for instant speed creature removal, 1 target is a little high perhaps, but I think the extra cards that we're going to get from that are worth our while. Skullrend, forcing all our opponents to discard 2 cards at random. So if that's not going to be nice, Siphon Mind also forcing our opponents to discard, but it also draws us some cards. Unnerve, another way of forcing our opponents to discard cards 2 at a time. So all of these actually generate a lot of card advantage for us. And Waste Not, so whenever we're forcing our opponents to discard, we'll be able to get some zombies, we'll be able to get some mana, or maybe we'll draw more cards for us. Of course, we want to reanimate our opponent's creatures, so command the Dread Horde. We can reanimate a lot of our opponent's creatures with this. Geth was more than happy to include him since he came with the deck alongside Chainer. And Macabre Mockery. This one from Ravaged God Legions. An instant speed. Put target creature card from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under our control. Gains 2/0 and haste. Yes, we sacrifice the creature, but hey. This can do some damage. Puppeteer Click. What's nice about him, I was looking at all the Persist creatures and all the Undying creatures, and in the end, Puppeteer Click is really the only one I wanted, because it pulls a creature from an opponent's graveyard, comes under our control, and it gains haste, and we get to exile that creature if it's something we don't necessarily want to see again. So I thought Puppeteer Click was an excellent addition here. Reanimate, of course. Any creature from any graveyard that's played in our control, and this is permanent. The Primordial. Don't ask me to pronounce this. But our Primordial, of course, it's a creature from each of our opponent's graveyards. Yes, it's 7 mana, but we get a 5/4 with Intimidate and up to 3 other creatures. Or 4 other creatures, depending on the size of our table. There'll be occasions, because Chainer has that discard outlet built into him, that we're going to want our creatures back in our hand, so that's what Oversouled Symmetry is for, as is Phyrexian Reclamation. And we also have Squeak Goblin Nabob to come back to our hand. I also threw in Recoup. We do play with a bunch of sorceries, so how cool is it to be able to give a couple of our sorceries flashback over the course of the game? So Recoup itself, it's 2 mana, target sorcery in our graveyard gains flashback. Flashback cost equal to its printed mana cost, so Recoup, flashing back Reanimate, for example. And then it flashes back itself, so we get to give a second spell flashback later in the game if the need arises. Undying Evil is a nice little trick. Somebody board wipes, so we can kind of protect our Chainer with Undying Evil out of nowhere. We're going to Gorge the World. Plan B, World Gorger combo. Because we're playing Chainer, I feel this is one of the few times where it's not just a good idea to have this extra win con in the deck, but because the World Gorger Dragon is a nightmare, it's a flavor one as well. So obviously Animate Dead, Dance of the Dead, and Necromancy are all here to trigger the World Gorger combo. And then we've got 4 other cards that we can use to put our opponents away with it. So Exsanguinate's here, Torment of Hailfire, those are the classics. Vampire Opportunist. The nice thing about this is even if you don't have your sorceries, if you've got all the mana and the Vampire Opportunist is floating around in your graveyard, what have you, then you can kind of break the World Gorger cycle by putting Animate Dead on the Vampire Opportunist and using all your mana to drain everybody out. And Sands of Delirium is useful not just as a win con, but also as a way to fill our opponent's graveyards with creatures. So Sands of Delirium, double duty here. This deck plays a lot of targeted removal. I'm not actually playing any sweepers. I'm going to be relying on my opponent to do all the sweeping, but we play a lot of targeted removal. So we've got Bedevil, we've got Dreadbore, Big Game Hunter, which we can Madness for 1 once Chainer is out. Same thing with Dark Withering, Madness for 1 to take out any non-black creature. Big Game Hunter, of course, is creatures power 4 or greater. Chaos Warp, any permanent, which sometimes is a pesky enchantment we need to take down. This is our way to do it. Foul Renewal. This is a way to generate card advantage as well as removing a creature, because then we take a creature back from our graveyard to our hand, and we get to give a creature -X/-X. Ingature. This is sort of a reusable shatter effect because you can evoke it for 1 mana, even from the graveyard. So if there's an artifact that really needs to go, discard a card, evoke Ingature. Kolaghan's Command. Another way, of course, removing an artifact and generating card advantage, because then we can make a player discard a card, or we can return a creature from our graveyard to our hand. And it's a 3 mana instant, which is pretty sweet. We can also deal 2 damage to target creature or player, so Kolaghan's Command is a 2-for-1 in many... is always going to be a 2-for-1. It's either going to take a second card from our opponent, or we'll be able to take a creature back from our graveyard to our hand for future use. Terminate and Unlicensed Disintegration round out the removal package. Running 13 each of Swamp and Mountain. And some non-basics. More removal with the Arena. Let's say I get my hands on somebody's big creature, then all of a sudden Arena is going to do a lot of work. Other than that, Command Tower, Dragon Skull Summit, and Foreboding Ruins, they tap for both our colors and have a chance to come into play untapped. Drawnyard Temple, if it ever ends up in our graveyard, it's pretty much an accelerant because then we pay 3, bring it back into play. Gaia Reach Sanitarium, I've always loved this card. Fits very nicely here, forcing everybody to draw and discard a card. Myriad Landscape, we're playing a lot of basics, so why not? Rakdos Reanimator, that's always going to come into play tap, but it's pseudo ramp, shall we say. It's more mana for 1 less land slot. Smoldering Marsh, another way of tapping for both our colors without necessarily having it required to come in tapped. Sulphur Springs never comes in tapped. I love the pain lands for this. And Metamorphic Expanse to round it out. The obvious improvements, of course, are pain lands, shock lands, but we're not going to talk about those. These are the lands that I am going to go with in this build. Alright, we've seen that. Let's see the EDHREC suggestions. Let's start with creatures. Let's see what creatures could not automatically detect the commander in this deck. Okay, let's solve that problem. I'm pretty sure I ticked it off, but it didn't want to work, so... There, so... Of course, cards like Plague Crafter to force everyone else to sacrifice creatures. This is probably a very effective choice, in fact. Magus of the Wheel.
Part of the discard strategy is to keep people from drawing into their bombs, so
that's why I chose not to run a wheel effect. Doom Necromancer I've never really liked so much. He's kind of slow, and honestly, if I was going to reanimate something from my graveyard, I would rather run Zombify than Doom Necromancer. That's just that is just me. Although here we can reanimate the Doom Necromancer by discarding a card, so there is that advantage specifically for Chainer Nightmare Adept. Archfiend of Ifnir. Actually, that's pretty good. Combustible Gearhulk, it's draw 3 cards no matter what your opponents choose, so I definitely considered it, but I chose to keep my try to keep my casting costs on the low side. Okay, what about spells? Of course, Arcane Signet. It's literally perfect in every way for every deck, so expect this to show up all the time. Victimize, being able to sacrifice 1 creature to get 2. Always a good deal. Living Death. I thought it was kind of high risk because we're deliberately putting creatures in opponents' graveyards. I'd rather not use this. Entomb. If you have the money to shell for an Entomb, it's the best way to go get your World Gorger Dragon or any other piece that you wish to play with. Demonic Tutor, same thing, straight up replaces Diabolic Tutor, or complements it depending on your take of the deck. Blasphemous Act, one of the best sweepers, of course. And Vandal Blast to destroy all our opponent's artifacts. No bad choices here, but nothing spectacular. And of course, lands. Graven Cairns would have been a good choice. Bajuka Bog. We want to take advantage of our opponent's graveyard, so that's why I'm not running the bug in this one. Canyon Slough, another dual land that just happens to have your land types. Temple of Malice would be a good choice here. And Rick's Mighty Dungeon Palace, I did think of this. I chose not to go with it. And Tainted Peak, as long as you control a swamp, this is a dual land. You have a lot of swamps, so these are all excellent choices. Alright, so my version of the deck, let's see if it's budget friendly or not. I did not realize Kolaghan's Command was a $20 card. When did that happen? When did that happen? I am definitely going to try to take advantage of that. So this build comes to 185, but I did not realize that Kolaghan's Command was a $20 card. So, oops. That's where a lot of that comes in. What else is fairly expensive? Probably Necromancy. Yeah, Necromancy is a $10 card because it's an enemy dead you can cast as an instant if you really, really need to. World Gorger Dragon, of course, a very, very popular combo piece in EDH, so that's got some value as well. Oversold Cemetery, that's slowly climbing up. Very, very slowly. Reanimates are around $10 each. So that's where a lot of the prices are coming from. And Phyrexian Arena, that's over $10 as well now. So yeah, just that slow, steady inflation. Other than that, there's no surprises here, really. So yeah, that's Chainer Nightmare Adept. Like I said, perhaps for me it was definitely the most exciting of the commanders to come out in C19. There was a lot of good ones, but Chainer I think I had a higher excitement for than most. Both Chainer and Greven, in fact. But Greven is really, really tough to build around, whereas Chainer, it opens the doorway to a proper Rakdos Reanimator deck, which is something we didn't actually have yet. A really solid, consistent, dedicated commander for Rakdos Reanimator. So I'm glad we've got that now. And as for my summer, just gonna talk about that one real quick. Busy summer where, you know, I live in Kelowna, of course, so lots to do in the summertime out here. And because there's lots to do, there's lots of people that fly in and out, so lots and lots of working, lots of overtime this summer. But it's going to be paying off in spades, especially here at home. I've gotten engaged. Found out very recently that I'm also an expecting father, so my focus has been moving. So I'm nervous. I'm excited, and next few years are going to be amazing. So yeah, that's all from me. I do have, I guess, one other announcement I want to make. Not so much announcement, but one thing I'm going to move over to is I'll still do some EDH decks, but I might do some updates to my older decks. I tend to keep my decks for a very, very long time rather than just scrap them and move on. A lot of people scrap their decks. I like to keep my decks. I'm a bit of a hoarder that way. So yeah, I'm going to be probably revisiting some old EDH decks going forward. I also want to switch focus over to my board game collection. I'm going to try to do some rules rundowns and sort of thoughts on the games in my board game collection. Between board games and card games, well over 100 in my collection. Growth on that, of course, is going to slow down as well. So, but I've got a lot of great choices, so I'm not too worried about expanding my collections at this point. Focus now moves on to baby stuff, but I will gladly share my board game collection as well as